Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for making time on this Friday afternoon towards the very end of the conference. I'm actually excited to see quite a few people here, so thank you again. Hopefully this talk and this session is going to be every bit worth that you are anticipating from it. We're going to talk about the BigQuery advantage. It is focused on AI-powered migrations for an AI-ready platform. And I am Mohit. I'm a product manager at Google Cloud. And I have three wonderful speakers with me, co-presenting. Martin Paynter, he is director of our Black Belts team. And then we have Robert Marshall, our esteemed customer speaker. He's the senior vice president of product and strategy at WPP. He's joining us all the way from London. And also joining us from London is our final customer speaker of the day, Vinay. He is the head of data and architecture at Virgin Media O2. Let's get started. So we're going to cover a few different things today. The first is going to be anchoring on why the agentic era runs on BigQuery and not hype. The second part is where it's going to get interesting in what we, from a migration standpoint, do. And the pitch will be, hey, you just don't migrate, you modernize. And we have paved agentic roads for you to be able to traverse those roads very smoothly, or make the journey very smooth. And then Martin is going to come up, and he's going to share how the journey is even smoother because we have fantastic Black Belts team and quite a few programs to help make the landing as easy and as comfortable for you. Then we will go with Robert. He's going to talk about WPP's journey and how they navigated the changes. And then finally, Vinay is going to round us off by sharing VMO2's journey. So let's jump in. Just a refresher. If you've been at Next, you've probably seen this slide before. But just to reinforce, what's BigQuery? BigQuery now is the data platform for agentic AI. It has Gemini everywhere. At its fundamentals, it still remains a true serverless engine, so you don't have to worry about infrastructure. But what it now also has is an open, optimized lakehouse. What that means, that it can handle many different types of workloads with different types of engines. SQL, AI, search for AI, supported from within BigQuery, graph, streaming, all of that in one platform. And what it's geared towards is the data science and developer tooling and conversational analytics, in addition to the traditional analytics workloads that it used to handle. And we have some stats on why the agentic era, the Gemini infusement, is really working. What we've seen is that 98% of our top customers are powering both their operational and their analytical workloads using Google's integrated agentic data cloud, which is that slide that I just showed you. A testament to that is that we've seen 30x growth in the data that is processed using Gemini. And the last bullet is not so much of SQL or warehouse, but is a very key stat in our Spark ecosystem. Our Lightning engine has shown 2x price performance against the leading competitive Spark alternative. With that in mind, let's get started on the modernization piece. Why you don't just migrate, you modernize. So for those of us who've joined me in the past or are familiar with the platform, we have had BigQuery Migration Services as a suite of services to help migrate and modernize for several years now. We are now calling them Data Analytics Migration Services, just to cover the enhanced scope. What are Data Analytics Migration Services? Just three key things, right? Number one, what make them really good is that they have a very powerful deterministic platform underneath. Now I'm talking about the migration services, not BigQuery. So the migration services themselves have a very solid deterministic foundation, and we've added agentic capabilities on top. So the intent is to provide you, our customers and partners, with the best of both worlds, agentic and deterministic. The second thing is that with the enhanced investments, the services now cover most sources across warehouses and data lakes. And of course, being flexible is very important to us. So we are bringing the services to where you are or to how you might want to consume them. We used to have the traditional API, CLI, UI, SDK through which you could consume the services. We've also now fronted the services with MCP, and we have a migration agent as well. So you can run your agents directly on top of services using MCP, or you can use A2A, agent-to-agent protocols to have your agents interact directly with our agent. One stat here from one of our largest customers, PayPal. 400 plus petabytes of data, 26 million monthly batch jobs, more than 100,000 BI dashboards, and more than 500,000 notebooks, all migrated using BigQuery Migration Services, or now the Data Analytics Migration Services. So that just goes to show the scale at which these services operate to modernize you. A little bit of context, and then I'll jump right into the announcements for today and give you two short demos on how the services have evolved. So migrations used to be cloud to cloud, used to be on-prem pre-2020, and then we started seeing migrations from other clouds onto Google's data cloud, or at the time, BigQuery. In 2021, we were one of the first companies to productize migrations as a first-class product, which means we back our migration services with all the SLAs, all the rigor that other Google Cloud services have. So between 2021 and 2025, we kept investing in the services. We started with a SQL translation engine. We then expanded to different parts of the migration. We built automated assessments. We built data migrations. In 2024, we added Gemini as an assist to the migration services. So now you could use Gemini essentially as a chat agent. But since then, we have doubled down. We have now actually built up a full suite of agentic experiences, and we now handle, in addition to warehouses, we handle lakehouses, hence the evolution to the agentic migrations using data analytics migration services. Services which were already big, serving thousands of customers. Last year, two things happened. We grew double in size yet again in terms of number of jobs, which is quite big. I mean, if you think about thousands of customers being served, we 2x'd that. The second, a very quantitative stat, we migrated more than 1 billion unique queries for our customers and our partners. Let that sink in. These are not queries that are running in production and being called repeatedly. These are queries or SQL workloads that are being migrated or modernized across. So 1 billion unique SQL queries. All right, let me just quickly jump into what we are announcing today. And a few slides later, I'm going to tie it all up and show you the entire suite of BigQuery migration services. So we have structured migration services to be free, to be comprehensive, and to be very friendly to our SI partners. We arrange or we view migrations in 3 distinct steps of the journey. You assess and discover common knowledge, you plan and prepare for the migration, and then you run the actual migration. And we have automation which addresses each part of the journey. And I have announcements for every single of these today on new features, new capabilities being launched. The first one is we are now going generally available with our Snowflake assessment. In addition to this, yesterday in a session, I also announced the launch of our assessment for Lakehouse and for Databricks. I'm emphasizing Snowflake because this session is geared or tilted more towards SQL. So let's quickly see how the Snowflake assessment looks like. A very short video.
Let's start with the most important question for any major IT project. What are the costs and benefits? The report begins with the total cost of ownership, or TCO. Here, you see a direct comparison. Your current annual cost in Snowflake versus the projected cost in BigQuery, with the estimated annual savings clearly highlighted. This gives you an immediate, high-level understanding of the financial benefits. The power of this report is in its transparency and control. You can dive deeper into the BigQuery cost estimate, configuring different pricing models like BigQuery additions and commitment levels. As you adjust these settings, the cost breakdown for compute and storage updates in real time. This allows you to tailor the estimate to your specific budget and performance needs. To further support a phased migration, the report allows you to analyze costs for a specific business unit or application. Here, you can select a specific set of virtual warehouses, and the report will calculate the TCO just for that workload. This is incredibly useful for building a business case to migrate one piece at a time, and for prioritizing the workloads that will deliver the most immediate cost savings. Beyond cost, the report gives you a comprehensive view of the migration effort. The System Features pages act as a guide for your project teams. This first page focuses on migration planning. It automatically scans your Snowflake environment for features like Snowpark, custom roles, or third-party integrations. More importantly, it tells you whether migrating these features will be automatic, semi-automatic, or require manual effort. This helps you allocate the right resources and set realistic timelines from day one. Finally,
I'm going to cut that short just in the interest of time, but this report is generated automatically once we have our extractor run and extract logs and metadata from Snowflake. And this is one of the sources that we support. We have this for a number of sources for both SQL and Spark. The second part of the migration, or the second phase of the migration, is planning and preparation. So you have run an assessment, you have baselines on what that migration is going to be, easy, hard, and sliced on different dimensions. I'm also very happy to announce today the public preview of source lineage, which will help plan and prepare for migrations. So source lineage, I will not show you a demo, but it's a full supported lineage creating dependency maps of your source environment. The idea here is you run the lineage, you figure out dependencies on the workloads that you want to modernize, and then you plan your migration accordingly. As your migration is moving forward, you also start running the lineage on Google's Data Cloud. You can do an automatic comparison agentically of the two lineages and figure out how well or not the modernization is going. So let that sink in. We have on our pages that I will show later access for you to go and look at demos. The third piece that we talked in the migration journey is the actual workload migration. So this is the hardest part, the code translations, the entire workload migrations. Here, I'm very happy to announce the availability of agentic translation and validation in a single step. So as you migrate your workloads, you can do inline validations. I have a quick demo for this. Uses the Gemini CLI. So pay attention. I think you'll find this interesting.
Example, here I have interactive translation open with a Snowflake SQL script. I can translate this script here in the Cloud Console, and I'll get a good translation. It has a couple minor issues, like this cast on the order time column that's probably incorrect because we didn't provide table definitions for the orders table, but the translation service provides tools to help deal with this type of problem, like suggesting a schema for the missing table. This powerful tooling is now available via MCP, meaning that you can access SQL translation within your local code repository using the AI agent of your choice. Today, I'm going to show off a migration process in the Gemini CLI, but note that everything I show here also works in other agent environments like Google Anti-Gravity. I have the Gemini CLI running within a Git repository that contains some SQL scripts for a Snowflake database. I've already done a data migration to move the data in that Snowflake repository to BigQuery, and I ran data validation to confirm that the data moved successfully. I'll prompt Gemini to migrate my SQL from Snowflake to BigQuery and validate that the new logic works. Gemini immediately gets to work investigating the code in my repository and activating a couple skills that describe the migration process and tooling. It discovers the validation configuration I used during my data migration and extracts some parameters from it, but it asks me to provide my project number and desired processing region, both of which are required to use the Migration Services MCP. Once it has this info, it plans out its translation. Note that it actually writes a YAML configuration setting up my database name remapping automatically, and it'll pass this configuration along to BQMS when it invokes it. It reads in my scripts and sends them off to the MCP to translate. After spending a few seconds polling, the agent receives the translations and saves them to an output directory. You can see the output it got here matches what we would get by translating on the Cloud Console. Next, the agent will use BQMS validation to check that the newly translated queries work correctly. This tool executes the Snowflake and BigQuery scripts on their respective databases, then compares their results row by row to see if they return the same data. After a few minutes of work, we get our results, and one of the queries is failing validation. This is the same query I showed on the console earlier that has a bad cast due to missing input metadata. Gemini takes a look at the file and the associated errors and successfully diagnoses the issue as missing metadata. The BQMS service provides a tool that can suggest a schema for the missing table, and Gemini decides to invoke this tool to try to fix the relation not found errors in the original translation. Once it has the DDL, it sends the script back to translation with the metadata attached. It gets back the new translation and notes that the cast appears to be fixed, so it saves the output and reruns validation. This time, our validation run is going to succeed, and that confirms that the agent has successfully translated the SQL scripts. So, as you can see, this new MCP tool enables your local agent to take full advantage of the BigQuery Migration Service, streamlining your workflow and making it easier to integrate with other tools like query validation. These agentic workflows.
All right, let's keep moving. So this was our agentic and deterministic in action. So these are the product launches that we've announced at This Next. Besides the ones that I told you about, the key ones to remember are open format data and metadata modernization from Hive Metastore, from Iceberg REST catalog, unification of data gravity metadata behind Iceberg, and then a bunch of enhancements in our Spark ecosystem, including the ability to be able to move or modernize database constructs like dbutils. On the SQL side, auto generation of missing DDLs and the automatic validations also for the Spark ecosystem. This is an eye chart, apologies, but the services or the components that are marked with green are the new announcements, and the rest of them are what has already existed in the data analytics migration services. I'm not going to take more of your time. I am actually going to request my colleague, Martin Paynter, to tell you about how their work creates paved roads for smooth journey and landing.
Thank you, sir. Yep. Thank you, Mohit. Martin Paynter, I'm responsible for the Black Belt team, as Mohit mentioned. You saw a lot of really cool things, and as Mohit mentioned, these are all things that are first-party products that are fully supported, as BigQuery itself is supported, or any of our other products are supported, for your journey. They are built for the most common use cases, for what the demand that our customers see the most. But at Google, we recognize that even if we support a particular path like Teradata to BigQuery, your implementations are unique, and there's always an edge case, right, that can potentially be encountered. And there's obviously use cases you may have that we haven't addressed yet from a proper first product perspective. So product leadership within our org recognizes this, and what they've done is they've made a few investments in order to make sure that you can continue to migrate and modernize now, even if that first-party product suite isn't quite where you need it to be. So we'll start with, our investments go across basically 3 pillars. Expertise, I'll use that as a general category. There are actually 2 black belt teams that we'll discuss today: migrations and data and analytics, data and AI. There is our financial incentives, the DA Fast program, to help for financial double bubble migration costs, right, professional services fees. And then there's strategic partnerships for when we don't address a particular use case, but we have a partner that does, and we want to purchase and provide that to you for free, so that you can make that migration successful regardless of what our first-party product suite does. So first off, I'll talk about the migration team, the database and analytics migration black belt team. So what is it? It is a group. It's a small group. It's an expert model. In this team, there's about 15 human beings globally, but they're experts in the migration, every aspect of migration, from assessment, schema conversion, code conversion, data movement, data validation, performance engineering post-go live. It's a group of guys and gals that have done professional service consulting their entire lives, so they can work with you and your teams in the trenches, but they also have a product engineering background. So if we find something on a customer that really should be a product, or perhaps is a bug, and we get a workaround but should help engineering teams fix it, we have the ability to work with engineering directly in order to an agentic flywheel, or a flywheel type concept, where we can write test cases, the solution, et cetera, and then software engineering teams can accelerate the development for that. And I'll give you a couple examples. One example was a customer was looking to realize about a 50% cost reduction by moving their Looker platform off of Snowflake and onto BigQuery. The migration services worked great. The migration was flawless. 90% of that workload took advantage and was 50% more cost effective. 10% was having really poor performance. Of course, it's Looker, it's a semantic layer. So the SQL being issued is not something they're controlling at that level. So the black belt team was able to come in, identify the parameters within BigQuery that just simply needed to be adjusted in order to do that. This was a customer that was doing a self-migration, by the way, so there's no partners. They didn't have BigQuery expertise to do this themselves. Black belt team, they struggled with it for about a week. Black belt team came in, 8 hours later, they've got a fully performant system, and they got trained on how to kind of do the troubleshooting themselves, and they were able to realize that full 50% cost savings. Another example, a financial services customer in EMEA was migrating multiple Oracle databases to BigQuery. They'd moved the first one. These environments traditionally communicated with each other through database links. Well, now you've got a BigQuery environment talking to an Oracle environment, a database link is no longer valid. Now, the proper answer to that is going to be federation for the customer, query federation, but that is not a product feature yet within BigQuery. So the workaround that the black belt team and the customer came up with was using Simba drivers and Oracle heterogeneous services in order to communicate cross-engine so that that functionality could continue until they can migrate that next Oracle system to BigQuery. Again, migration services work great, no problems, but these are the types of things that you encounter that are outside of it that a black belt team with expertise can help remediate. And then again, we work with product engineering quite a bit, and so perhaps we see more use cases of some kind on customers that they themselves have no visibility into, and it helps them shape the roadmap and prioritize features based on actual customer interactions. Now, I feel like I did disservice to this team because this is kind of like, I feel like I get to be a product manager for a minute and do a launch because this team is brand new. The Data and AI Agentic Black Belt team, it's the same premise and operating principle as the Migration Black Belt team, except for it is myopically focused on helping customers realize agentic and generative AI use cases specifically within the BigQuery, the data and analytics product stack. So that could mean anything from you're halfway through a journey and you're looking for model optimization to I have an idea and I want to build it out. And this team is the one that would be deployed to work in exactly that same manner. It can be in the trenches with you from an assessment all the way through a go live, and also works with product engineering teams in order to make that a smoother process or influence the product roadmap. Incentives. So we understand that you guys could love all the features of BigQuery, all the AI use cases it enables, the security, governance that you all get to take advantage of, but there's somebody with a checkbook somewhere that says, this is kind of expensive, we don't have the money for it. We recognize that. We recognize that you're operating another environment in addition to moving to an environment on our platform. And so we make sure that we provide incentives to help offset that. Now, the DA Fast program, which is available to any customer that's moving to BigQuery, it's very specifically focused on migrations. So if you're coming off Oracle, Teradata, Cloudera, whatever, it doesn't matter what the source system is, as long as you're doing a migration to BigQuery, it provides a combination of GCP credits to offset your BigQuery usage or Dataproc usage if you're using those for the migration. And then it'll also provide PSF or PSOs, so partner funding or our own professional services funding, which can be used for anything from an assessment to going all the way to actual implementation on your behalf. I'm just trying to think. There's nothing, excuse me, it's for every region, for every industry, so there's really no restriction. Again, you're just looking as long as you're making a BigQuery migration, it's available to you. And then the last thing I'll mention is the tooling. So very specifically, we've had a very successful partnership with Stream on the database migration side for the last 4 years. So there are use cases where our first-party products like BigQuery or Data and Analytics Migration Service or data stream do not support a source. We don't support DB2 as an example as a source, or Sybase, these other types of things that are going to go to database products and analytic products. We've migrated hundreds of customers, thousands of databases over the last years with the technology, and so we've expanded that partnership this year to apply to the analytics use case. So if you do have the use case where I need to keep things in sync over a long period of time, we started with 6 months. The idea is you get 6 months of free usage of the platform so that you can keep data in sync between Snowflake or Databricks, Iceberg, like all these platforms and technologies are supported. And then you can keep those in sync so you can do testing, cutovers, code conversion validation, and you're not doing massive reinstantiations of data every time. You can keep it in sync that way if that's a use case that's useful. And then obviously there's lots of other partnerships we have, but this one in particular I think is really compelling for the work that we do. And with that, I think that's all the goodies that we have for you to help with these. So I'm going to hand it off to Rob to tell us about WPP.
Hi, so I'm going to spend 5-10 minutes to talk about WPP's journey through platform migration, but also, as Mohit said, really our journey through modernization. So WPP, for those of you who don't know, is the world's largest marketing services organization, and we're really focused on helping our clients grow and also create world-class consumer experiences. And we do that with some of the most complex, some of the largest, the most globally accessible brands all over the world. And we've been going through our own transformation journey over the last few years, making sure that we can simplify and we can consolidate a lot of the work, a lot of the businesses that we have, and we've grown inorganically through acquisition, consolidating a lot of that to make our proposition and our services simpler to our clients to try and focus entirely on our clients' growth and not have to deal with the complexity of a business. And with that opportunity allowed us the moment to really think about modernizing our data platform, not only bringing in data sources and various point solutions that we had from across this huge ecosystem of thousands of businesses into one single data platform, but also looking at modernizing it in a way that not only helped solve some of our existing challenges and existing questions that our clients have, but really setting ourselves up so we can get quicker answer and more complex answers to questions that we know will come, but we don't even know how to solve them yet. So our belief really, when it comes to a marketing data platform, was any future success that's going to enable being able to solve these problems for our clients, we're going to have to focus on making sure that we have the broadest data variety that we can possibly have, not only to get more context on the questions that we have, but also be able to solve increasingly more broader questions for our clients, not just about consumers, but about their own business, about some of their business operations and how to support them with data. We knew we needed to get quicker access to data, not having a central team that was responsible for a huge backlog of data ingestion and processing, but making sure that we could speed up that process and get from data to insights, faster insights, as quickly as possible, and reducing a lot of the dependencies on human teams. And then the other area of focus we were really passionate about is making sure that we have this idea of compounding intelligence, so having a central system that every usage, every access of that data, every utilization of that data compounded our intelligence of what our people were doing with it, what our systems were doing with it, and increasingly what agents will be doing with that data. And every interaction that either our employees have with that data or even the use cases that data empowers is learnt and updated and continuously compounding over time. And this is all across some of the highest governed data, sitting in federated locations that is incredibly heterogeneous by nature. Marketing data across the whole suite is hugely heterogeneous, and increasingly, as we start adding unstructured data to this, increasingly so. And this was all making sure that we have level set access for humans, for systems, for applications, and increasingly for agents to solve those problems. So we started this journey about 2 to 3 years ago, and we recently sort of launched it to our clients as open intelligence. And really, 4 things sit at the heart of this. The first one is compliance, making sure that compliance is absolutely paramount all the way through from accessing the data, where we access it and where we keep it, keeping it as close to where it's collected as possible, but also in a huge enterprise business that is WPP, making sure that certain people can only access certain data in certain locations for certain clients, and making sure that's number 1 priority across the business. We've done a huge amount of work in our compliance in that side. And then the other thing, as this business organizes into something more streamlined, limiting data movement, so not people going in and grabbing the raw data, moving it to where they want, making sure that we can host as much data, limit data movement as much as possible, and again, learn from the interactions of the data where it sits rather than losing the intelligence once it's moved out of it. Really embracing multimodality, in the wrong order, but certainly the vast majority of data that we have available to us now is unstructured. It's in the form of creatives for ads. You've got TV ads. You've got huge out-of-home posters. How do we bring all of that into a space, into an ecosystem where we can compare structured data that we would have from consumer records all the way through to the color of an image and the place of a logo on an advert, for example. And then something that obviously when we started on this journey, we didn't quite appreciate how much of an impact this would be, but certainly building it with agents first in mind. I think we've all seen some of the phenomenal use cases that agents can bring and the speed of which they can deliver insights to ourselves and to our clients. And Google's Lakehouse and also BigQuery ecosystem really played into this philosophy, and something that we shared, and we've been working very closely with Google for some time to test some of the solutions they're coming with and sort of building, co-developing some of the capabilities and co-researching some of this at the frontier. So Google Lakehouse and Google BigQuery drives a lot of this stuff. And I think as we've started to migrate, obviously one of the topic of this is how have we used agents and what impact have they had to migrate a lot of these point solutions into a central ecosystem, something that is incredibly daunting when you look at the sheer volume of things that we had to move. And the great news is with the agentic services that we employed, it really has removed all of the bottlenecks, or a lot of the bottlenecks that have sort of made this really daunting task something that we can get value from this as quick as possible. So in a recent migration, we did this, I think at the beginning of, or the end of last year, beginning of this year, something that we predicted would be a 12-month migration of about 2 petabytes of data, ended up taking us about 4 months. So there's a reduction, a 60% reduction in time of doing this migration. And that meant we could focus more on the downstream dependencies and the migrations there rather than just focusing on the data. And most of that has come from predominantly 2 places. The first one is agentic rewrites of SQL queries, a 92% reduction, making sure that agents are handling the bulk of the rewrite. So rather than having a data engineer going through line by line and rewriting it, the data engineers could focus on the edge cases rather than focusing on the bulk of the work. And again, the QA of that data, making sure that agents are running over and doing the first pass and checking that everything is where it should be and has the correct metadata exactly, et cetera. So that was the sort of the real light bulb moment for us as we were sort of doing this, was not only what impact this had on the initial migration, but also what impact this could have on the rest of the data ecosystem. So really starting to employ agents at the very core of data ingestion, utilizing some of these techniques and some of the things that we've done. And we partnered with Zencor on this, a shared partner of ours and Google's, to sort of really help us through this. But some of the learnings have allowed us to sort of rethink about how we ingest data, how we think about the flexibility of data, and really start realizing some of the ambitions that we have. So moving from sort of rigid pipelines, static data, and then on top of that, putting it in a place that someone could query it and learn slowly about what that intelligence was. And it was really about increasing that speed by which we could deliver intelligence to our business, test whether these use cases were of value, test with our clients and seeing whether this was useful. And again, compounding that so that the breadth of our business across different markets, across different clients could realize all of that value quicker and in compound. So this is really about moving. The modernization was really about moving from this idea of, putting everything into a big lake and then not being able to do anything with it and just leaving it there, to very, very quickly building intelligence on top of it and building that data that can be acted upon far quicker. And then I'll pass to Vinay. I think he's going to take you through their journey.
Thank you, Rob. Good afternoon, folks. It's great to see so many people on a Friday afternoon. I'm Vinay Pai. I head up data strategy and architecture in Virgin Media O2. For those of you who don't know Virgin Media O2, it's one of the largest telecom companies in the UK. We provide broadband, telephony services, mobile, as well as TV services. We've got about 46 million mobile connections, 5.8 million broadband connections, and we are one of the largest ISPs in the UK. I'll be talking about our journey into Google Cloud and contrasting it in some ways in terms of the capabilities we had in the past and what the new capabilities provide, as Mohit mentioned. We have been on our journey migrating into GCP for the last 6 years, actually. Large telco, 6 large data platforms moved over multi-year programs, basically, right? And I'm going to be showing you in terms of what are the benefits we have achieved in one of the last migration versus how things used to be back when these automations capabilities were not available. Typically, a program like this, a migration program, would generally take about 2 years at least for us in the past, where we had to build the business case, identify the data assets, do all the migration as in the code conversion and everything, and do all the testing as well. And this was hugely manual activity. There was, of course, accelerators which our partners would create, but it would still take about 1.5 years to 2 years to complete all these migrations. So we have done about 6 large platforms, and that's been our experience for roughly the first 4 platforms which we did those migrations. But towards the end, the very last platform, we were able to do that conversion in less than a year. And that's where we have used these capabilities from Google for automated code conversion and testing capabilities as well. And these are some of the details which I'll share through in the next slide. But I also want to talk about the actual journey we have done in terms of not just data migration, but how do we create business value as part of that migration as well. Some of the things which we did in terms of providing that data earlier to the business by doing tactical ingestion so that people don't have to depend on a 2-year program. They can still consume the data in GCP whilst we are busy migrating those platforms into GCP. So these were some of the approaches we have taken, as well as building various AI products and ML products whilst the data is available into GCP. So looking at the difference in terms of what we have achieved in the very last program versus typically what it would be in the previous programs, where as I said, it's generally a 2-year program, and from a return on investment perspective, our finance team wouldn't look very well in terms of taking 2 years to get those benefits. Whereas the very last program, we were able to do that in less than a year. I think it was about 10 months roughly, where we were able to convert a large Hadoop platform into cloud-native BigQuery migration using Gemini-based capabilities. And that also means that typically, when you are moving those platforms, these are not static platforms. They are living and breathing systems with changes which we had to accommodate in the past. But now, because of a shorter period, it also means that you have to less worry about those changes in life. Plus, because of the automation, the overall cost for that, for the actual migration itself, is reduced, both for the code conversion and the testing related activities. And that's been the key benefit for us, as in which where we have contrasted those different methodologies for migration. We have done different types of migration, both lift and shift, as well as direct migration, and we have seen those benefits of roughly about half the time taken for the migration. I'm now going to be talking about the products which we have built, because these migrations were not done just for the sake of migrating. Of course, from an IT perspective, we wanted to move away from those platforms. But then what is the business benefit? I mean, what are the capabilities we brought in by moving those platforms into GCP, right? So we have built a lot of products. Our platforms serve multiple teams. That's the commercial divisions, our network divisions, as well as various operational capabilities in GCP. And for each of these things, we have built lots of products. So that's the capability which we have enabled by moving that data into GCP. So a classic product which I could talk about is in terms of network expansion. We are one of the largest network service provider. A huge amount of money, typically about 700 million pounds, we spend every year investing on our network, growing our network. Where is the best place to invest? Where do we put in a mobile tower? Where would it give the best customer experience? That's a very difficult question to solve, and that needs a huge amount of data to solve as well. That capability we could build in very quickly by having all of that data into GCP and then enable the business to spend that money wisely. And that's one of the biggest benefits we have seen of having all our data in GCP as part of this modernization stuff. The other example in terms of products is false detection, where our customers at times, if they do have problems with our services, how can we detect that proactively as well as in a reactive way? That data also helps us in false diagnosis as well as solving the customer's problems. From a consumer perspective, one of the biggest areas which we have enabled is personalization. We know a lot about our customers, what products they use, where they live, what services they consume right now, what devices they use and everything. How do we bring all this data together so that we can offer them better products and services? That itself needs a lot of data and a lot of compute power, which we were able to implement customized and personalized services for our products, our customers, by migrating all of these data into GCP. So these are just some examples of some of the key products and capabilities we have been able to deliver to our customers as the business value beyond just the IT cost saving of moving a platform from on-premises into GCP. A few other things which I do want to talk about. Mohit earlier mentioned about the theme for this is about AI-powered migration, which we discussed, and building an AI-ready platform, right? So one of the key things which we have figured out is that you have got all your data now into GCP. Context is the key, really. How do we build a platform which is AI ready? As in, you have got all the data in one place, but then you need that to be enabling for your AI journey, right? For those of you who attended a session earlier today by my Google colleagues, Sudha and Deepinder, it was a really great session on data products in GCP, and that's exactly what we are doing. To be able to implement data products, there is a couple of key things which you need. As in, you need data which is of good quality, and you need to understand what the data is about. So that's what enables your context. So there's a few things which we have done in that space. We have made sure that we bring in all the metadata from our source systems and do that at scale using the capability which Google has given, which is the knowledge catalog, which was announced in the keynote a few days back. We also implemented a lot of capabilities for data quality, as in how do we ensure that the quality is fit for purpose, right? We have done a couple of things using anomaly detection, and we have also built data contracts. This is a first-class citizen which is now enabled as part of knowledge catalog. What that means is you can understand who is the source producer, who is the consumer of that data, what are the data quality rules on top of it, and all of that data effectively feeds into your data products so that your AI-ready use cases, they can understand what is the data, what is the quality of the data, and can you use it for a particular purpose. Bringing all of that data together effectively makes your system AI-ready, and that's the journey on which we are on, moving from a pure platform modernization now into data modernization. Yeah. I think that covers my slide. I'll call back my colleagues, Mohit and everybody else.
Thank you, Vinay. And this is just a quick call to action, so we covered a lot of different things. Here are a couple of resources. Please feel free to scan these and look at our capabilities as well as some of the migration offers. I think we are out of time for Q&A, but we are very happy to take questions off the podium, off the stage. Thank you very much.